Hey everybody, I'm Mike from Electric City Sentai DenziCaster, and this week we start our look at Power Rangers Dino Charge on the DenziBlitz. Dino Charge, you ready? Hey everybody, we are starting our look at Power Rangers Dino Charge this week on the DenziBlitz. Glad you could join us wherever you are. Now, this is the show that you guys picked for us to watch. It's the first Power Rangers show we've done here on the DenziBlitz. We've done some Kamen Rider, we've done a couple of Super Sentai, we've even done a Metal Hero with Space Sheriff Gavin that we just wrapped up last week. But now we embark on Power Rangers for the very first time. And you guys got to pick what we're watching, so here it is, Power Rangers Dino Charge. Now, for the record, we're going through this by the DVD box sets. So we're going to do this in 5 parts, one for each disc. So today we're looking at episodes 1 through 4. That's volume 1 of Dino Charge. And then we're going to do 4 parts on Power Rangers Dino Supercharge with the Supercharge box set. So here we are. Now, for those of you out there playing the home game, today we are looking at, if you bought the individual discs, we're looking at Power Rangers Dino Charge Unleashed. That was the first volume that came out on DVD. So we're looking at episodes 1 through 4. So we're looking at Powers from the Past, Past, Present, and Fusion, A Fool's Hour, and Return of the Caveman. So those are the 4 episodes we're looking at here this week. So to give some background and some thoughts general on this series, and a little bit of my background with Power Rangers, because like I said, this is the first Power Rangers show we've done. I got into Power Rangers way back when, in '93, when it very first came out with Mighty Morphin. And that's where my love affair with Tokusatsu truly begins. I had seen some stuff before that, like Godzilla and Ultraman, but didn't really know what it was until now. Well, until 93 anyway. I watched the show and enjoyed it a lot, pretty much up through, the first half of Turbo. And then I kind of fell off with it. I would watch a little bit here and there after that. I watched a good bit of Space, and I watched some of Lost Galaxy, and not so much of Lightspeed Rescue, and a very little bit of Time Force, and a very little bit of Wild Force. Ninja Storm, I saw a chunk of, and it caught my attention a little bit, but it was the second dinosaur season, Dino Thunder, that really caught my attention and pulled me into Tokusatsu full force. In part because I really liked the show, I liked the look, the feel, I liked the characters a lot. And there was a touchstone for me, Tommy Oliver, Dr. O. I remembered him from the original shows, so many moons ago. So that was sort of my introduction back into Power Rangers. That's the same year that I discovered Deca Ranger, which was my first Super Sentai. So that's really where it really starts back up. And I watched Power Rangers as it came out in the States, from Dino Thunder to SPD to Mystic Force to Operation Overdrive, and I never really could get into Jungle Fury, so I kind of stopped there. Did watch RPM, though, which was magnificent. When Power Rangers came back, after Disney sold it back to Saban, I tried watching Samurai. It was, I'd seen Shinkenger, and it kind of paled to me. And I tried watching Megaforce, because I'd seen Go-Sager, and I had seen Go-Kaiger, obviously, and I wasn't terribly impressed. And then came Dino Charge. Dino Charge is the first new Power Rangers show in the Saban Brands era, helmed by Chip Lynn, a.k.a. Judd Lynn, who had such a creative hand, with such a creative force behind so many prior Power Rangers seasons, many of them my favorites. He helmed the second half of RPM, as a for instance. So really, really, really liked Judd Lynn's work and his creative juices, and being willing to go well beyond the source material. Boy, does he ever. So I'm really looking forward to watching this series all the way through. I've seen parts of it towards the beginning, but I really haven't seen anything past, if I'm glancing here at episodes, probably The Tooth Hurts might be the last thing I saw. So maybe episode 6. I suspect, at the very least, by the time we get to disc 3, I'm in new territory. The show is based on Kyryuger, which I have seen all the way through. Kyryuger was had a very high emphasis on emotion, as well as the music of Earth, and there was a definite samba theme to the show. They've ditched pretty much most of that, from what I can tell so far, at Dino Charge, and thank goodness for it. Because it was one of the hokier things about Kyryuger that I didn't care for. Things that, sort of first impressions that strike me off the bat, I looked at episode 1 as Chip Lynn's almost statement of intent. If you watch episode 1, Powers from the Past, basic synopsis, and I don't have a computer here with me for notes this week. Powers from the Past is essentially us being introduced to our first 2 Rangers in Ranger form. That's Shelby, our Pink Ranger, and Tyler, our Red Ranger. We meet all of the Rangers, but these are the first 2 we see actually morph. Tyler is the son of an archaeologist adventurer whose father disappeared after battling some monster years ago. Shelby is an employee at the museum's snack bar, for want of a better term, who wants nothing more than to actually get to go out and be an archaeologist and go to the digs and learn and contribute. They both stumble across inner gems. These things that we learn sort of in the prologue are the most powerful raw energy, I suppose, in the universe, entrusted by an ET-looking alien named Keeper, that's him right there, who entrusts them to dinosaurs 65 million years ago. He's also indirectly responsible for the extinction of said dinosaurs, but to quote RJ, the guy who appeared on many of our early podcast episodes of DenziCaster, Keeper's kind of a dick. And we actually have talked about Dino Charge on the old podcast version of DenziCaster, a little bit of it anyway. So that's sort of the basic setup. Shelby sneaks along to a dig. We meet Chase and Coda in the first episode as well, who are basically other employees of the museum that assist Miss Morgan, the scientist du jour on the digs. And we encounter our first monster of the week, who lasts more than one episode. But that first episode, Powers from the Past, outside of the actual opening sequence, there is no Japanese footage in that episode at all. It is all American footage. All of the suit acting, all of the fight scenes, everything. As I said, that's sort of a statement of intent, that this is not going to be a straight adaptation of the original source material, which was a criticism I think a lot of people had of Samurai, Super Samurai, and then Megaforce, Super Megaforces. It was a lot of straight adaptation rather than going beyond the source material, which Chip Lynn is notorious or famous, whichever way you want to look at it, for doing. Past, present, and fusion, we get the introduction of our Green Ranger, who is Riley, who is actually a ranch hand. His family owns a ranch, though he has fantasies of being a swordsman. So there are elements of the original characters that do come through here. We see in episode 1, Chase, our Black Ranger to-be, is a ladies' man and thinks he's very suave. Kodo, in this, our Blue Ranger, is a caveman, but much like his counterpart, Kiryu Blue, he's sort of out of touch. Although Kiryu Blue was that because he was a quote, old man, presumably a ranger in his 30s. Then you have Tyler, our Red Ranger, who, like King Kiryu Red, is the adventurer. You have, in our case, Shelby, who the Pink Ranger, who, like her counterpart Kiryu Pink, is desires to be more than what she is. And then you have Riley, our Green Ranger, who, like Q Green, is an expert swordsman, and that is his motivation and his passion is swordplay. So they're keeping elements of all those characters and pulling them into Dino Charge, which I think you have to do when you're adapting Super Sentai. You have to keep some element of the character personality traits just to be able to justify what you see them doing, if that makes any sense out there to anybody. So Sledge, who is our completely American-made bad guy, something else new, so to speak, for this show, compared to the other Saban brand seasons, comes back to Earth after being sabotaged by Keeper 65 million years ago, as we see in episode 1. He has come back to Earth. Past, present, fusion, we see the end of our Ice Age monster, whose name escapes me. We see the debut of the T-Rex Zord, aka Rexy. We see all the Rangers transform for the very first time together. And that's sort of the overall concept is just, here's the fusion, they say in the phrase, here's the fusion of our team together, finally, all 5 Rangers. Keeper explaining the mission to them and so on. A Fool's Hour is sort of a focus episode on Tyler, with Sledge staging an attack to make it seem as if he is going to face the Rangers himself personally, and there is a brief fight, but he has a higher motivation, not simply destroying the Rangers, but getting the Inner Gems, and to do that he has to find the Rangers' base. He kind of realizes that, so he sets a trap for them. Tyler kind of sniffs it out. Chase says, you can't go off on your own, we're a team. Tyler's response is, yes, but we don't have to be together to be a team. I could go off and do this while you're doing this other thing, and it all works together. Little bit of tension, manufactured stuff, as it tends to be in Power Rangers early on in a season. But, because if anything, really, they haven't been together long enough to buy into that level of potential conflict, or even that level of, we're a team. You know, they haven't been there together as a team for that long. So I don't think they've necessarily earned that trope just yet. But Tyler's hunch plays out. They learn to trust Tyler, their new Red Ranger. And that is the debut of the Megazord, the Dino Charge Megazord, which we see for the very first time in episode 3. And then episode 4, Return of the Caveman, is basically Koda's origin story to a point. We see how he got the blue inner gem. We see in episode 2, Riley gets the green inner gem. In episode 1, Tyler and Shelby get the red and pink inner gems respectively. In episode 5 or episode 4, we actually see where Koda got the blue inner gem. Koda and Chase have their inner gems at some point prior to the beginning of the show. So this is sort of a flashback to how he got his inner gem 100,000 years ago, because he's legit a caveman. And apparently when you have an inner gem, you stop aging once the inner gem bonds to you. So some interesting concepts thrown out in that one. And it's really a focus episode on Koda and his struggle with modern technology. Because, yes, he got his inner gem 100,000 years ago, but presumably something has happened where he hasn't actually been around for 100,000 years. Because one would think if he'd been around for 100,000 years, he would have adjusted by this point. But that also brings a little bit maybe of Kiryu Gold into the equation too, where it's the man out of time. Because Kiryu Gold is a samurai who really is somewhat time displaced, as it were. So general thoughts, general likes and dislikes out of this batch of episodes. I love that they are playing with the concept, and there's an original story. In Kyryuger, it was all about the monsters gathering together emotions in order to bring D-Boss, which was the main villainous group / villain, in order to bring D-Boss out of his slumber and re-energize him so that he could take over the world with the emotions of rage, sorrow, joy, and happiness, or love. In here, we still see the Chevlars, as they were called in the Japanese series. In this, Poisandro would have been in Kyryuger, the Chevlar of Love. I think it's Clank. I might be wrong. But our Metal Knight is the Chevlar of Sorrow. Fury was the Chevlar of Anger. And then Curio, who shows up in... I think in here it's episode 4 or 3. I think it's 4. He is would have been the Chevlar of Joy. I like the fact that they are changing that story arc and they're turning it into a quest for these gems. I actually appreciate that. It gives the villain a tangible goal. I really like the method by which they have the monsters. All of the monsters are seen in episode 1 and 2. All of them that we're going to see, presumably, for the entire run of the show. Because Sledge is a bounty hunter, and these monsters are all prisoners on his ship. So I really dig that idea that, here's an excuse. This isn't Finster making things out of clay, or, us, having a new criminal show up every week or something like that. It's, where it's just... hey, here's thus and such criminal who's come to Earth to do something. Our villain already has these monsters at his disposal. He has a ready, disposable force of creatures to do his bidding because they want to be free, and he will make them free if they can get him the Energems. So I like that. The Sledge costume is a little lacking compared to the Kyryuger counterparts that we see throughout the series. It's the first new American-made villain for Power Rangers, so I somewhat give it a pass since this is the first one of the Neo Saban or Saban Brands era, as I like to call it. It doesn't look terrible, but it's a little rough compared to its very polished Japanese counterparts, because the Kyryuger villain costumes and monster costumes looked really good. You might not have liked the designs per se, but the quality was top-notch. Even though some of those have had some slight modifications to them for Dino Charge. I like all of our characters. None of them are getting on my nerves. They're all quite well defined. I like our Rangers. The acting is not bad out of these first 4 episodes that I've seen. Really do like Yoshi Sudaro, I believe is his name, as Koda. I'm really digging the Blue Ranger. So far he is my favorite. Our Red Ranger has a personality, which gives him a 1-up on the last couple of Red Rangers, as near as I can remember. And so, like I said, I'm really enjoying the character interaction and whatnot so far. I like the dedication to making the footage seamlessly part of Power Rangers. Another thing that they did, and I want to grab one of these toys from back here behind me. In the Japanese show, all of the Kyryuger, all of the dinosaurs, all the mecha, had a different name. It was not Tyrannosaurus. It was Gabutira. You didn't have the Triceratops. You had Dricera, or Drykira, which was a riff on Drill Triceratops. Well, in the US version, they actually have the English language names of the dinosaurs, in this case Tyrannosaurus Rex, for red. In the footage, which would have been very simple to simply just use the Japanese footage, where they are using the batteries, or in this case Dino Chargers, they actually redid elements of all of those, all of that stock footage to show the batteries as they look on the American equivalent. So it actually does say Stegosaurus instead of Stegotochi, or Velociraptor instead of oh Lord, I forget what the Velociraptor was called. Or it doesn't say Parasagon on it anymore. So I appreciate that they went to that effort. Attention to detail. which is not something you always get out of Power Rangers, if we're perfectly honest. Seeing the American costumes and the Japanese costumes for the heroes side by side, or from scene to scene, there's not a lot of change in quality. They look really good, so you can't very obviously tell which footage is which just by looking at the costumes. In a lot of the old shows, you could. So I appreciate that. If there's anything in these episodes that before I jump onto stuff I didn't care for, I will say this. The one other thing that I really, really enjoyed, you don't see the Megazord till episode 3. Just so we're clear. In episode 1, you don't even see all the Rangers transform. You only see 2. You see the T-Rex Zord for barely a minute on screen, and you never see it even in full. You don't see the T-Rex Zord in full until episode 2. That's when you finally see all the Rangers transform. We don't even meet all the Rangers in episode 1. And in episode 3 is when we finally get the Megazord. Bless them. This is called pacing. Don't throw everything at everybody at once. Yes, this is a toy commercial. If you don't believe me, here be toys. But they actually paced it out, and they're letting you meet the characters. They're establishing the characters, and they're establishing the powers bit by bit by bit, instead of throwing it all at you at one time. So that I really dig. Some of the things I don't care for too much. The CG in the show is dodgy. Anytime it's American CG, Japanese CG for Tokusatsu is a little dodgy by American standards anyway. Some of the CG we see in here, particularly there's the dinosaurs a little bit. In particular, there's a saber-toothed tiger in Return of a Caveman that looks really bad. It's dodgy by Toku standards. It's not dodgy by American standards. It's dodgy by Tokusatsu standards in general for TV. So it's a little rough. Hopefully we'll get better as the series progresses, or they will start leaning more on practical effects. I get that for dinosaurs, things like that, that's kind of hard to do. But effort. So there is that. With the costume for Sledge, like I said, it's not necessarily my cup of tea. I'm hoping it will grow on me. I think the problem with any American villain costume that you're going to run into is there have been so many good ones over the years that when a bad one shows up, it's bloody obvious. I mean, they hit it out of the park on the first go with Lord Zed, which was actually, honest to goodness, tremendous costume and look. And as I think through the ones that followed, Divatox was a little iffy, but Astronema was fantastic. You really didn't have one. Well, you did have one for Lost Galaxy. You had Trakina, which was not my cup of tea, but it looked okay. Rancic and Time Force was amazing. Emperor Grum looked really good. Mesagog looked really good. So you had a succession of really good ones, and not too many that were rough. There were a couple. Sledge looks rough, and in a lot of ways, the Sledge costume, I would even go so far as to say, in a lot of ways, it looks unfinished. So that's not cool. But again, I suspect it will grow on me because I like the character, and the character and the portrayal could overcome the costume, and that's not uncommon in Tokusatsu. And then finally, Keeper. I'm not a fan of Keeper at this point in the show. 4 episodes in, Keeper's a dick. First he kills the dinosaurs, then he tells Sledge in one episode, essentially when Sledge, feigns his attack against the Rangers to basically serve as a distraction for another one of his monsters. He says he will take the Energems, that Keeper can't protect them, and Keeper's response is, well, the Energems have bonded to the Rangers, and if you want it, you're the one that's going to be destroyed. In essence, telling Keeper, if you want the Energems, you will have to take them over the Rangers' dead bodies. Which is a fact not lost on the Rangers in that exchange either, which I found that amusing. So the Rangers are not dumb. So that's cool. But Keeper, in and of himself, I'm not a huge fan of the character at this point in the show. I'm hoping he will grow on me. I'm not a huge fan of the look. I was actually watching this show with my wife, and she looked at it and she said, oh, so E.T.'s the mentor. And he does seriously have an E.T. phone home kind of vibe to him, as you can see from the back cover. Don't like the cloak. I really wish they could have come up with something a little different, to be perfectly honest. Because it's not bad quality, but it looks really out of place with everything else in the show. So that's my initial thoughts on Power Rangers Dino Charge, episodes 1 through 4. So next time, part 2, we're going to be on disc 2, which or volume 2, if you're playing the home game and you bought the individual DVDs. So next time we're going to be looking, it's going to be Resurgence was the standalone disc. It's going to be the next 4 episodes in the series, so 5 through 8. We're going to be looking at Breaking Black, The Tooth Hurts, Let Sleeping Zords Lie, and Double Ranger, Double Danger. So that is our next batch of episodes when we come back here to look at more of Power Rangers Dino Charge on the DenziBlitz. Until next time, folks, we hope that you've enjoyed the video. If you have, please hit the like button, big thumbs up. Share it with your friends, share it out there on the internet. Please, if you've enjoyed the show and you want to see more, hit the subscribe button. It really does help. And let us know what you think down in the comments below. Give us your feedback, because we always love hearing it. Sometimes it leads to question and answers, like the DenziBlitz bonus we did a few weeks ago. So check that out and leave your comments. And if you have any questions, leave those too. Maybe we'll talk about them in a special episode. If you want to help support the ECS Network and DenziBlitz, you can do that by going over to our Cafe Press store, cafepress.com/ECS Network, and picking yourself up a snazzy t-shirt. We actually have a new t-shirt over there that's inspired by Johnny Sacco and his flying robot to go along with all the other stuff we've got. And who knows, maybe somehow, some way, we will wind up with a dinosaur-inspired t-shirt. I'm not sure yet, but who knows. And of course, you can become one of our patrons by going to patreon.com/ECS Network and signing up there. There's going to be some minor changes to it here in the coming weeks, but we're looking to get that up and running full bore relatively soon. So, with all of that said, folks, we appreciate you watching. Thank you for joining us, and we'll hope to see you next week when we look at more Power Rangers Dino Charge here on the DenziBlitz. Until then, I'm Mike, and I'll see you around.